Welcome. Glad to have you with us. This is Church 180. We are here gathered to worship God. We're gathered in His name, the name of Jesus, and we're really thankful that you are with us today. We're going to be looking at Proverbs, so if you want to turn in your Bible, open up on your device, however you access it. We invite you to turn with us this morning to Proverbs 15. We've been studying Proverbs the last few weeks, and we're going to return to it again. It's a rich study. Proverbs is one of those books in the Bible that you can kind of read through and think, well, it's a collection of sayings. It's a collection of wisdom sayings. But is there any continuity to it? And how does one go about reading it? And I can tell you, yes, there is a continuity to it. There is a central message to the book of Proverbs. And in case you didn't pick that up the last 2 weeks, or if you weren't here, haven't seen the video, if I was to sum it up in one phrase, one clause, one sentence. What is Proverbs about? It is about the fear of the Lord. That's what the book of Proverbs is about. It's not just about the fear of the Lord to be studied. It's not just about the fear of the Lord to understand what that means. It's about having the fear of the Lord, not so much as in being afraid, but in terms of being in awe, being in deep reverence, respecting God for who He is, and gaining an understanding that helps us see Him for who He is and recognize all that He's done for us, all of what He values, all of what He conveys to you and me in terms of His desire for how we should live. This is what the book of Proverbs is about, and it's written in different ways. If you were to study it, you would study chapters 1 through 9 and get kind of not really a story, but maybe a narrative or just an explanation as an instruction on what does fear of the Lord look like. In particular, we pick up from verse 7 in chapter 1, and I'm just referring you to that. You don't have to turn to it. But in verse 7 of chapter 1, it says in essence, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Over in chapter 9, it says the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. That's at least in the NIV translation. It may be a little different in yours, but the idea is the same. The fear of the Lord, seeing Him for who He is, recognizing His place in all creation, all of our lives, everywhere. It's an understanding, a true understanding, an appropriate understanding of who He is and what difference that makes in our lives. And so in the first 9 chapters, you really have a collection of instruction for how we are to live. And it's written in the form of a father and a mother speaking to a son. That's just the way it's written. But you can, with some work, translate that over into a mother or father speaking to a daughter, parents speaking to children. And this is the idea of those first 9 verses. There's a shift a little bit in chapter 10. From chapter 10 all the way through, let's say somewhere in the middle of chapter 22, you get sayings, wisdom sayings, proverbs they're called, which is another way of saying a short sentence of wisdom, right? Short sentence of wisdom. What does a short sentence of wisdom contain? It contains things about sense, understanding, wise ways, and they're short. They're intentionally that way, but they're also intended to be applied. They're not intended just to gain knowledge for the sake of gaining knowledge. That's what you find in the central part of Proverbs, and then the last part of it from, say, the end of chapter 22 on through chapter 31, you get kind of a mixture. So that's what you're looking at. And in this central section where we are today, chapters 10 through 22, you'll find a different collection of sayings. Some of these, like we'll find in chapter 15 today, are kind of contrary, or they're contrasting rather. Not contrary, sorry. Contrasting. So you get a statement of, well, this, but that. Later on, in that same central section, you'll get more synonymous. This and this, saying in essence the same thing, but in different ways. So I just offer that to you this morning to say, if you're like me, without that helpful information, Proverbs is just kind of an odd collection of things, and I hope to try to get some meaning out of it, or I'm not sure how this goes with that. But that's in essence a good way to get started. Now I want to ask you, if any of you happen to be fans, go back a few years, or maybe you're just into reruns. Any of you fans of the long-running sitcom, I guess you'd call it, comedy, MASH? You remember MASH? Any of you remember that? Oh, yeah. What do you remember about MASH? If you could sum up the dialogue, the interchange between the people in MASH, how would you describe it? Sarcasm. Perfect. Done. We can move on. That's the word I was looking for. I didn't, although maybe I should have. That was perfect. Sarcasm. That's exactly what it is. And we laugh at it. There are other shows. Maybe some have a little bit more of a snarky kind of tint to them. I think of All in the Family. There's another really old one, but oh my goodness, sometimes biting, right? Depending on who was speaking to whom. So you've got that kind of television show, that kind of conversation going on. And I want you to keep that in mind, because I want to share with you one of my lately favorite sayings. Some of you have heard me say it before. I love this cartoon, and I should have brought it. We could have put it up on the screen so you could see it. But it's got a little squirrel, and the little squirrel is sitting up on its haunches. And it says, "Just stop talking. I'm sure whatever you have to say can wait until you're smarter." I love that. I love it primarily because I'm sure he's talking to you, right? Not to me. Just stop talking. I'm sure whatever you have to say can wait until you're smarter. Now, I want to apply that because it has some relevance to today's proverb. But instead of smarter, let's change that to wiser. And wiser in the sense of not just smart intellectual knowledge, not just smart in terms of gained understanding, but wiser in the sense of applying what you've gained, all in the understanding that there is a God. And all wisdom comes from him, because he is, in fact, wisdom. He is the source. He is the originator. He is wisdom in his very nature. We look at Proverbs chapter 15 this morning, and I want to encourage you to read through the whole chapter. It's a great chapter, but I want to call your attention to a couple of things in particular this morning in light of that saying, because you and I have conversations all the time. We have conversations with people at work or at school. We have conversations with people in our family or maybe our neighbors, friends. We're constantly having conversation. And anytime you have conversation between two people, there's always the potential, and in fact, likely an actual element of conflict. That's always a possibility. How do we deal with that conflict? I brought up the whole issue of sarcasm and snarky in these shows because one of the things, if you remember, if you've seen those shows, one of the things that you hear besides the laughter and the ha-ha, this one got that one, there's usually some truth in what they're saying. And it's applied in such a way that it makes us laugh and it makes us joke and kind of think, he got him, But it's also intended to kind of subtly get in and change the way we think. When you read Proverbs, and in particular in this chapter today that we're going to look at, there is an element of truth that's present throughout. And the way in which it's presented challenges us to think. It challenges us to consider what's being said, because sometimes it's not quite as obvious. Sometimes you have to really think about it. What is being said here? A lot of wisdom comes that way. I want to draw your attention again to chapter 15, Proverbs. And the very first verse reads this way. Now, before I read it, because I see you looking down, and I'm trusting you're doing the same on video if you're following us, you're likely to read any number of English translations today. And one of the things that I discovered in my study of Proverbs is that the translations sometimes are just a little different. Sometimes they really take some studying because they appear to be very different. Keep in mind that a saying that is conveying wisdom that requires you to think about it sometimes is a struggle to figure out how to say it. How to say it in a way that we can really be changed by it. Verse 1 reads, in the NIV, which is what I'm reading to you today, a gentle answer turns away wrath. A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. What's going on in this? A gentle answer. Who gives a gentle answer? Make it really simple. Somebody's been asked a question, right? There's a conversation happening here. And a question asked could be for information, but it could also have a little color added to it, right? You know what I mean when I say that? It could be presented to you in a way trying to elicit a particular response. Maybe it's trying to kind of poke you or stir you or maybe even get your attention in a not so nice way. We ask each other questions sometimes when we don't have the courage or the desire or some other reason to just speak plainly. Proverbs in this particular verse is encouraging us to hear the question and answer in a way that doesn't encourage wrath, doesn't stir up anger, doesn't impact in a tit-for-tat sort of way. A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. If you'll flip over, and I'm going to connect several Proverbs this morning, but again, they're not necessarily in order because that's not the way Proverbs is written. It's not written like a narrative that is a story that builds on and you can follow a plot. It's a collection of sayings. Remember that. So that's Proverbs 1. Proverbs 15, all in 15. Proverbs 15 verse 4 says this: a soothing or healing tongue is a tree of life, but a perverse tongue, a deceitful tongue, maybe even a nasty tongue, crushes the spirit. Now, of course, to understand this, you've got to convert to biblical language. To say a tree of life may have no meaning to you unless you're understanding what that represents in the Scripture. And you go all the way back to Genesis to understand the tree of life, but you can go all the way forward to Revelation. Tree of life is a metaphor that runs through the whole of Scripture, and it in particular speaks to those of us who need life. If we eat from the tree of life, we have reason to believe that we will be granted what we can't gain on our own. So a soothing or healing tongue is like a tree of life. It is a tree of life. What's the opposite of that? Death. Death. And maybe you don't have to go to the extent of actual death, but what happens when somebody says something to you that is in fact snarky? What happens to you when there's not the joking? Or maybe when somebody says something sarcastic to you and you don't really know them. So you don't realize that maybe they're just kind of joking with you. That's just a manner of speaking. What happens to you when you hear something like that from someone? Anger. What else? You shut off. Yeah, you just kind of shut that off. Whoop, back up. Hello. Goodbye. As it says here, there's a crushing of the spirit. It's belittling. It's denigrating. Chapter 15, verse 18. A hot-tempered person stirs up conflict, but the one who is patient calms a quarrel. Well, that's an interesting one to consider, right? A hot-tempered person stirs up conflict. How? Stirs the pot. What does a hot temper imply? Anger. What else does it imply about the person?
Lack of control.
lack of control, short fuse, easily set off, right? So how does that stir up conflict? Maybe you've not been around a hot-tempered person. I'm guessing that's not the case. How does a hot-tempered response stir up conflict? Who do you think you are?
A lot of times it elicits the same response.
It does. Fight fire with fire, right? Bam, bam, back. And this is what begins to happen in the conversation. It stirs up conflict even if the conflict wasn't obvious to begin with. But the one who is patient, now that's an odd thing. I don't know that if I had asked you or you had asked me, what's the opposite of hot temper? I don't know that I would have said patient. I'm not sure that, calm. I might have said calm. But it's interesting that the proverb here says, in contrast, but the one who is patient calms a quarrel. Why would that be the case? If you're wanting to, in response to something that maybe has hit you as sarcasm or a snarky way or a off-putting remark, how does patience help you?
Doesn't give the person anybody to argue with.
Because there's not an immediate response. What else is happening inside the person?
It opens up dialogue.
It might open up dialogue if the response waited on, is thought through a little more carefully. Thought through not in the sense, although it could be, not so much in the sense of, is this the right way to say this? That could be. But instead of, is this the right way to say it, maybe is this the right thing to say right now? Maybe, in fact, in this moment, the person who said this to you can't hear the truth. Maybe whatever's going on in them that they've thrown out at you, if you respond in kind, there's going to be an even bigger disconnect than there already is. Maybe, in fact, the best thing to do is to respond in such a way to acknowledge that you've heard it, and then just be quiet. Think it through. Allow some time to pass before you come back and address, if it is in fact something that needs to be addressed. But sometimes when somebody says something to us, that's the last thing we want to do. Well, that's what I want to do. And I can do that with my words, right? We didn't have to agree quite so quickly. Some of you sound like you know me. The one who is patient calms a quarrel. I want to invite you to jump down to verse 28. The heart of the righteous weighs its answers. You see a connection? The heart of the righteous weighs its answers, but the mouth of the wicked gushes evil. Bam! Bring it up again. Right? Don't bring that junk in here. The heart of the righteous, not the heart of the more clever, not the heart of the quicker thinker, not the heart of the more witty individual, but the heart of the righteous. What's he getting at? Righteous in what way? Righteous according to whom? Take a step back, and it's appropriate to give the church answer. It's the Bible we're reading, right? It's the Word of God we're reading. Righteous in the eyes of the Lord. A right relationship. Coming out of a right relationship with God. Living in a right relationship with God on an active, ongoing basis. Knowing how we feel sometimes when somebody hits us with something. Isn't it appropriate to remember the gracious God that we serve? How gracious He has been with you and me. Over and over and over. How many times I have fussed, maybe not with my mouth, maybe just in my mind or in my heart. Lord, this is not fair. This is not right. Why do I have to deal with this? Why do I have to put up with this? Did you hear what he said or she said? I mean, are you kidding me? Lord, really? The heart of the righteous weighs its answers. It's another saying, and I'm sure you've heard it and you'll all nod because nobody has not heard this saying. Once you say it, it's out there. You can't take it back. So why do we wait? Why do we consider? Why do we, as righteous people, in the study of wisdom, which is defined as the fear of the Lord, the reverence of God. Another way of saying that is an appreciation for who He is and how He thinks and how He communicates and how He calls me to love with or live with. Maybe not a accidental slip there. Right? To love one another. Now, love doesn't mean putting up with everything and coddling and coaching and right? Sometimes it means, hey, friend, that's not the better way for you. That's not the better way for our community. It kind of stands against what we hear so much today. Well, no problem. That's your truth. It's not mine. Oh, you can do whatever you feel like. Just don't put it on me. Remember, this is not written just for individuals. As a matter of fact, it's written for a community, the community of God's people. Right? God has a great interest. And when Jesus came, He had a great interest in the community of people who are called by His name, living with each other in a way that reflects His values, His grace, His mercy, His love. The heart of the righteous weighs its answers, but the mouth of the wicked gushes evil. Whoa. I don't know how that hits you. I read that the first time, remembering that these were contrasting statements and thinking, okay, so the heart of the righteous weighs its answers. I get what's being implied there. Wow, but the contrast that is stated here, the mouth of the wicked gushes evil? What in the world? Verse 29, the Lord is far from the wicked, but He hears the prayer of the righteous. He hears the prayer of the righteous. Are you imagining, are your wheels turning? What might that prayer look like? More importantly, what might the tone of that prayer be? Yes, maybe we have to talk about the second iteration of the prayer. Maybe the first iteration is, Lord! And then I remember who I'm talking to and who's listening. And you know how that goes. Surely I'm not the only one that's been there, although I have more often than I'd like to acknowledge. And I have to take a step back because just about the time I want to just lay it out there and tell Him, get them, Lord, the mirror pops up, right? The mirror called grace. I want to present something to you here as we look at these. And I want to just quickly read them as if they're in order, because sometimes that helps us process. But I want to present these to you for your consideration and ask you, what is it that the Lord is really trying to say to you and me in these verses. A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. The soothing or healing tongue is a tree of life, but a perverse or deceitful or nasty tongue crushes the spirit. A hot-tempered person stirs up conflict, but the one who is patient calms a quarrel. The heart of the righteous weighs its answers, but the mouth of the wicked gushes evil. To use the language in Revelation, when Jesus is given this revelation to John, and he's speaking to the churches, at the end of it, he often says something to the effect of, listen to what the Spirit is saying to the churches. So I ask you the question this morning, as you hear these read in this order, what is the Spirit saying to the churches? In particular, what is the Spirit saying to this church? Which is another way of saying, but I can't say, for practicality and time, what is the Spirit saying to you, and 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 so on? Because we're the church. And this is a book of wise sayings spoken to you and to me. What do you hear the Spirit of the Lord saying to you this morning? What do you hear the Spirit of the Lord back up? What do you hear the Spirit of the Lord saying to you? You don't have to answer that out loud. What do you hear the Spirit of the Lord saying to us? That's safer. Because it could, in fact, mean you guys and not me. Because we're still us.
Stay awake and be watchful.
Stay awake and be watchful. Yeah. What else is the Spirit saying to us this morning?
Wait upon the Lord, shall renew their strength.
Yes, wait upon the Lord. Wait upon the Lord. If I can tag off that just a little bit, you remember what waiting upon the Lord actually means? Probably not, right? What does he mean? Wait in hope, confident hope that he is the Lord who is wisdom. Wait on the Lord because it's not up to me, it's up to him. Wait upon the Lord because whatever he chooses to do or not do is wiser than what I might choose to do or not do. And because God is after something in particular among his people that would set us apart from every other people group ever in the history of the world.
Wait upon the Lord because he's trustworthy.
Wait upon the Lord because he's trustworthy. And how is the world to know you and I are followers or disciples, to use the church language? How is the world to know you and I together are followers of Jesus? Jesus gave us one particular way. Our love for each other. Not the mushy, feely kind of love, but the agape love. The kind of love that says, I care more about you than I do my own self-interest. I'm in this for your benefit, your growth, your salvation. I'm in this that you might grow and benefit and be blessed. Whatever you've said to me, no matter how nasty or snarky it is, this is one of those that if I knew how to do it for the video, I'd turn around and be talking to myself, right? Whatever it is someone has said to you that has lit that fire, how am I to respond? Knowing that the righteous one the one who is wisdom, the one who has called me above everything else to love him and love each other, is right here with me. And maybe I'm listening, maybe I'm not, but if I am, he probably would say something to me to the effect of, well, where are your accusers? He might say to me something like, wow, are we in a hurry? You had to respond that quickly? Before your brain caught up? Now, I don't know that the Lord can be sarcastic like that. But when I imagine him being human down here with us and knowing how I am, he might need to say that to get my attention. Maybe he would need to say, hey, I get it. That was really rude, or that was really snarky, or that was really sarcastic, or that was not thought out well. That was maybe even meant intentionally to be hurtful. I don't teach, Reed, that you are to meet with the same force something that offends you. I don't teach that you are to require an eye for an eye. In fact, what I require is that you follow me. Follow where I lead. You know where he leads. This is a difficult thing to say in front of you because, like I said, I need to be talking to me first. This speaks to me before it speaks to you. I don't know of anybody this doesn't speak to. Because our fallenness manifests itself in such a way that we're easily offended. We're put off because how dare they? Or perhaps because they're just wrong. And nowhere in this does it say, well, forget about it. As a matter of fact, and we don't have time to go through all of it today, but I want to draw your attention to a couple of other things just to highlight that last point. No way does this fit the other side that we tend to, the other side of the way in which we tend to err. It doesn't say, forget about it. Just be nice and sweet and let them go on living their stupid ways. Right? I mean, just candidly. No, this does not say, don't worry about it. They'll get tripped up eventually. In fact, you've got sayings in here like verse 5, a fool spurns a parent's discipline, but whoever heeds correction shows prudence. In verse 31, it says, whoever heeds life-giving correction will be at home among the wise. In verse 32, it says, those who regard discipline despise themselves, but the one who heeds correction gains understanding. Short of what he's saying there is, it doesn't mean when someone is like that to you that they are just to be allowed to be however they are. What it means is take a step back if you don't have the helpful response. If all you have is the emotional response, you're likely to be in trouble. Take a step back and allow the Lord to give you the wisdom to know how to say, and at the right time how to say, to whoever you're wanting to speak to. I think there's a better way. Because those of us who are unwilling to accept correction, those of us who are unwilling to accept discipline, difficult as it may be, how are we to grow in the likeness of Jesus? This is the wisdom of Proverbs. This is the wisdom of our God. This is the one who took insult after insult after insult, snarky insults, and who never returned them in the same way. Friends, you know me well enough to know. Those of you who know me at all know I cannot do this on my own, and I'm guessing you can't either. But if I'm seeking wisdom, if I'm seeking to follow the Lord in His way, then I have one who is willing and able to help me. And this is part of our active growing in discipleship. This is part of our active following the righteous one. This is a part of us gaining wisdom in the eyes of wisdom. May the Lord help you and me, or excuse the grammatically incorrect way of saying this, may the Lord help me and help you to become wiser, to become more patient, to become more interested in healing and wholeness and grace demonstrated, all the while demonstrating that my trust is in the one who wants that far more than I do. And He is constantly at work. This is the wisdom of the Proverbs, the wisdom of our God.